Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Mir Sultan, and I'd like to thank you for being here with us today as we discuss the critical nature of selecting the right ETL tool for your industry and enterprise. As a note, please use the question feature of this webinar to send us your questions. We'll do our level best to answer these questions as they come along during our presentation. However, in being sensitive to your time, if we don't get a chance to review all of your questions during this session, we will certainly get back to you afterwards. But again, we encourage that you do put your questions or your concerns forward and allow us to provide you with answers and understanding around those questions. So let me begin by saying that over the years, I've so often seen companies select any N number of ETL tools, only to realize that at what seemed to be the right decision may not have been the most ideal in the long run or did not produce the most desired results. So the focal point of today's webinar actually, is to help you folks understand that selecting any random ETL tool will not be the best method of approach. And yes, of course, you can subscribe to Gartner or to Forrester, but this only provides, even though it provides a credible insight into your selection criteria, will only be a generic benchmark, which may not conform to your unique and evolving ecosystem. Also, so often I've heard the claim that perhaps using a top-tier tool would be the panacea or the cure to all of your integration elements. But a bigger or more expensive tool may not always be your answer. For instance, I've recently worked with a globally recognized Fortune 500 media giant utilizing just an open-source, community-shared ETL tool, and they've used it very successfully. So it's not always about the price tag or the market buzz, which equates into the ideal prospect for you. But it's a various array of indicators and selecting factors which should be taken into consideration and which we will walk you through as we go through our presentation here. With all this in mind, it becomes imperative to use proper discretion and thorough research for procuring your ETL tool. One of the most effective methods of assuring ultimate success, of course, is to collaborate with a solution provider partner that has experience and exposure to the multitude of tools that are available in the market, who has successfully helped companies purchase and integrate those tools in all aspects of industry models. So, along with myself and my colleague, Asad Mahmood, we will illustrate the importance of selecting the right ETL tool, which would not only minimize your integration risk, but of course will maximize your ROI on that tool. And by the time we have concluded our segment, we hope that you've had gained some deeper understanding in methods of ETL evaluation and selection with sound knowledge around some of these factors, such as key considerations and prerequisites, data integration tools, and the features and the benefits of those tools, ETL tool selection itself, which tools are best and which tools are ideal, of course, and the strength and the weaknesses associated with each of those tools. Before we get into the technical aspects of this presentation, I'd like to mention that both Asad and I represent Visionet Systems, a globally engaged organization with over 20 years of experience working with many of the ETL tools found across the market, procuring, implementing, and integrating those technologies found here on this particular slide, and of course many others as well. So without further ado, I'd like to give you Asad, who will walk you folks through the methods of selecting ETL technology tailored fit to your business and your technical environment. So Asad, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Asad here, and welcome everyone to the webinar which we have set up for you guys. For enterprise like data integration projects, they are typically initiated to transform legacy ETL tools or jobs which are created over the years in an organization. Project sponsors have to go through following some consideration and phases as prerequisites to the actual implementation. In our experience, we have observed that if you are not putting focus on these prerequisites before starting and initiating this project, there will be cost overruns and other factors which can cause project some concerns later on. One of the key piece is while we are initiating the project, we need to define the objectives very clearly. Objectives can be manifold, but it starts with what kind of challenges which you have today. What are the data integration and development kind of challenges which you have tomorrow, and what are the things which you will need to do in your future strategy. All of those things need to be defined pre to that project. The reason being is like if your resources who might have built all the legacy ETL code in COBOL, and they might be nearing a retiring age, there will be a challenge to support those processes once they are not there. The same could happen also like if you are changing ERP system or any application into your mix and you have to transform all the interfaces with that application. It might be a longer, bigger project with all the legacy code written over the years to integrate between those data sources. Those kind of challenges, and then in future, like where and which direction your company is going and what your business is asking more and more with respect to today's and tomorrow's challenges which will be coming up. Project sponsors need to align with all those objectives before they initiate a project. Once you are done with that and you define, you know what you want to achieve, that's the point where it comes in that you try to revamp and you try to understand like what kind of data infrastructure you will be supporting later on. Will you be more inclined towards a complete transformation with all the enterprise data warehouse and data layers changed, interfaces updated, or you will try to stick with the same kind of data models, but the tool will be different. And both approach could be implemented. But the decision making and the thought process needs to be placed at this point where you need to decide like which will be better. There could be a longer discussions and lots of more thought process which actually comes into play in making that decision. But this is the phase where you need to actually do that. Once you are through that, final phase as a prerequisites comes into selection of the tools which will be supporting your data integration strategy. All the challenges, all the infrastructure topology which you have decided and finalized, it will be very important to understand that a smart and correct set of tools will be actual solution which will be implemented and help you achieve all those goals. If you haven't spent time on correct thought process against selection of a tool, it might come out later on and cause you a lot of headache towards the end of the project or even during the project. You can decide on what kind of databases you want to support later on, or do you want to bring in a new player in the picture, or at the same time the ETL tools which should be utilized to achieve all your future goals.
Just real quick, we got a question from the audience. If you can answer this question for the audience, Lassa, please. It says, can you elaborate in which cases redesigning a data management infrastructure will be required? Also, will it not be too large of a project, which may affect the ROI? Can you please respond to that?
Yeah, sure. What we have seen most of the time is when we initiated projects like where we are implementing a tool transformation or ETL transformation, many times the factors were that your existing ERP system might be changing completely. You might have a mainframe before, and now you are going to a new package solution in terms of your ERP infrastructure and implementation. That also sometime warrant a change into data management strategy altogether. The reason being like all those tools which were built 20 years ago, and they have supported your company and corporation very well till now. But with these new tools, like if you are coming from AS400 to a SAP system or towards a Microsoft Dynamics implementation, the layers of data which will be provided to you, that will be completely different than what you're supposed to get from AS400. There might be different kind of hierarchies which business might also implement while the transformation is happening, and the data aggregates and all the things which happened in the old EDW might not be able to support all those new things which are coming in. At that time, there are two approaches which can be thought about. One is that yes, we will keep everything same, but we will try to patch up the old existing system to support the new EDW. But with that, there are lots of development effort which comes in, and lots of patchwork which comes in, which does not make your life easier, but actually more difficult with maintenance and support perspective. It's a better choice, and we have seen that being implemented and chosen with many of our clients is that you go with the whole transformation on the BI side also. So you create enterprise data warehouse from scratch, and then you support it with the new systems. Your all legacy reports and everything can also be produced, but it will be only better. And your maintenance cost, your all the future project needs, they will be quicker. So ROI will be actually better if you are transforming your data management strategy along with your ERP systems. So once you are done with all these key consideration and prerequisites, the piece comes in like where we need to understand that what kind of tool, what is the ETL tool actual benefits and features. We have seen with many of our partnerships that when the IT is coming in to evaluate a tool, their resources have worked with legacy ETL topologies for so long that they don't understand that all the code which they written in COBOL or any legacy other language, that can be done very quickly and very in a better fashion through an ETL tool. We can, like, obviously the extraction from the legacy is one of the key part of those ETL tools. You might have a mainframe system, you might have an AS400 or Zeus machines. The ETL tools in today's world, they support most of all those legacy environments as a source or a target. So it's not a challenge anymore to connect to them through these new world languages or tools. And COBOL or all these legacy languages are not the only solution. Your synchronization and cleansing of data is one more feature which actually data integration tools need to provide. Transformations are very key. Transformations are key to you for actually implement all the data transformation needs through ETL tool instead of having some challenges on creating through code or writing separate lines of code for any kind of transformation. But all those features and all those capabilities are provided through modern day tools very easily. And then obviously loading into any kind of a target, like whether it's an ODS, data warehouse, or an application, is one of the key features for any data integration tool in the market. Now, the benefits which you usually get through these tools are that they are most of the time GUI based versus code. So you are doing most of the work with a drag and drop kind of functionality instead of writing longs and longs of lines of code. We have seen with many of our clients that in the legacy environments, they had like thousands of lines of code to do certain ETL tasks, which these tools can do very quickly with the very simple mappings which are provided to them. So all those benefits actually come through these ETL tools. Your connectivity and scalability, your real-time integration needs between different applications, or even for analytics purpose, are served by these tools most of the time in very good fashion. The loads are automated, less time need to be spent on development or maintenance, which actually increase your ROI on any of the ETL implementations or initiatives. So once we go through the ETL tools and we understand that what kind of features and benefits these tools are supposed to provide, we come into that phase where we want to actually select an ETL tool which could be helpful for us in achieving all our future needs and goals and relieve us from all the challenges which we identified in the phase one. So most of the time, these tools, like there's like a bunch of tools in the market. So which one to select or where to even start is a kind of a challenge which many of the corporations and IT organizations face in the market. So it's a very good start that you go through the industry information like Gartner and Forrester, as my colleague said before, and you can start from there. Gartner used to do understanding. So most of the time, what actually happens is that we start with that point, and you can also choose from there, but the point comes in where we actually have to consider the industry benchmarking and results, and we can go with any of the tools which are highly rated in there. So, but that might not be the solution to start with. Like you can choose Informatica, which is showing like in 2015 Gartner study as the best tool, but is this the right tool for you guys? Or IBM InfoSphere or SAP solutions for ETL, are they the right tool for you? Or we are just going to select the best one in the market? Most of the time, just selecting the best one in the market is not the answer to your challenges and problems. You might invite different vendors for a demo, and you can also see for yourself like what these tools capabilities are and what the vendors actually support you do. And you can also do some internal evaluations. There are some pros and cons to that approach, but obviously when you are inviting a particular vendor, you will be getting a biased presentation on your products and features. No one is going to tell you that where their product is actually lacking or what kind of challenges they might be facing if they start actual implementation. The same case is that not always it's cost effective. You might be selecting a tool which is best in the market, but all of your challenges and problems and future needs might be served by a tool which is not that much expensive and is also good and do all those things which a best tool is also doing. So it might not be a cost-effective solution to also go with that. And if you are doing an internal evaluation, there is a higher end of R&D cost which is attached to that. There are direct and indirect costs, like if you spend some time on evaluation, all the development time, like if you don't end up selecting that tool, that goes to waste. You are not using that cost and time spent on any of those tools evaluation in the end if you are not selecting them. So there is a direct and indirect cost attached to that. So better approach for any of such initiatives is to actually select the right partner for you. The partner, like they usually help you with this. Any partner which you select, the one thing which is key is that they will have or they should have extensive experience with leading ETL tools, so that they can actually give you an unbiased view of all the tools capabilities which you are interested in, and then they can actually also, if you want to, demonstrate that to you and help you evaluate those multiple tools against current challenges, your future needs, and long-term support models. One key piece is that when you are going to a partner, don't put cost as a factor to start your evaluation. Because what happens with these partners, and due to their industry experience, you can leverage their experience to actually negotiate a better price on many of these tools which seems costlier as an outfit, but they have licensing models as well as some offerings which your partners might know better, and the prices will be very lower than what you are expecting before.
So before we move forward, there's a quick question that came up from the audience that would like to be answered. The question reads, how do we make sure the partner is not bending towards a certain tool? The way I understand this, I think what's being asked is if you're collaborating with a partner and you're in partnership with that partner, how do we ensure that the partner is not leaning towards one tool versus the other tool? What's your take on that?
Yeah, and that's a very good question and a valid concern in a sense that obviously, like as I said, that if you are bringing in a vendor, they are going to give only good things about their tool, and the same could happen with a partner. Like if they have a tool of choice, they might bend towards that tool rather than giving you an unbiased view. But one thing which any IT organization or project sponsors need to counter is that how those evaluations are going to happen, how that partner is going to help them evaluate those things. Usually what we have seen in the practice is that obviously a partner which have experience with all those different tools and technologies, they can help you identify what are the capabilities and scoring against each other, like how Informatica is good on one particular aspect rather than that data stage or Pentaho or Talent. And all those things actually those partners can help you with. But weightage of those benefits should be created by you or the project sponsor. The reason being, like, what is important for you? A tool might have a very good feature that it have very good connectivity with big data technologies like Hadoop and MongoDB and everything which is coming into the market nowadays. But you might not have a need for that. So scoring wise, that tool might be scoring very high on those things, but for you that weightage is very low. So you control the weightage and your partner controls the scoring, and you guys work in tandem in partnership where your partner is advising you about tool capabilities, but you are weighing all those capabilities and everything according to your challenges and your future needs. Same example is like if you have a tool which is very good connectivity with social media, that's again something which is most of the organizations are utilizing nowadays too much, and all the studies also rate these kind of features very high. But if your organizations don't have social media presence and don't want that, and business model also does not require it, that scoring or that capability doesn't mean anything for you. So your partner can provide you the information about that, but it might have a zero weightage for you over there. So once you are going through all that process and you are going through all the scoring mechanism and weightage, you control the weightage, so you control the end result on base of your partner's advice that what actually going to happen, what tools is going to on top of that.
So if I understand this correctly, what we're saying is we need to have a mutual consent, a mutual partnership, and collaborative effort together with the partner to come up with the right tool that's best for your ecosystem and your industry standards.
Exactly, and that's why I'm saying, like, we are not going to do that. You are outsourcing your need to the partner. What we are saying is that you are going to collaborate with the partner. That's the partnership key, that you collaborate with it and you then go from that point.
Thank you.
So moving on, like the personalized weightage and scoring, and like what kind of areas we will be observing into, like we need to give a particular weightage and scoring, and what kind of things which we need to see. As I said, like the two examples I gave already before as a part of my answer, but community strength, like if you are selecting a tool which is new on the market, and it has very good features, it has very good ratings from the even rating agencies, but it's not adopted widely into the market. That means like it will be harder to find experienced resources in the market, or even training material and white papers or books on those tools in the market. The reason being, like they're just coming out of coming out new in the market. So how much community strength is, that is something which need to be scored and weighed against your needs. The reason being, like most of the organization do want to support either ETL infrastructure in-house, but obviously your resources can leave and you might be needing more resources with the new data integration projects. So if you go into the market, how much expensive are resources going to be? How much support on different kind of challenges are going to be? How much forums are available? How much active the community of that tool users are? So that is something which is very key in our world, that any challenge which you find, the community is the key piece in finding a solution to that. Data sources is again like one more piece where, like, whether it connects with Hadoop or not, or is it does it have good connectors of individual connectivity or through Teradata or Netezza, or does it just use the ODBC? All those data source connectivity or data target connectivity also weighs into a better ETL implementation. Data quality components, like many of the companies have generic rules built for their data quality insurance, so that like they make sure that all the data which flows to their systems is according to a certain standard. But you don't need to define all those standards at every ETL job that you are creating. You can define that at one point and then implement it wherever that kind of data exists. And that's something which most of these leading tools in the market provide by out of box. And that's something which we also weigh, score higher on those tools which provide better data quality mechanisms. Your scheduling, your access to metadata, customization needs, performance, support, all those things comes into picture where you need to actually weigh in on do we have access to execution logs? Can we see or how longer we can see the logs? If you find out an issue like the job ran completely successful, but there is something which happened which was identified 2 days later, do we have 2 days longer logs available, or all the logs are overwritten whenever the new job runs? These are the kind of things which seems very smaller in the outside, but in the production environments, these things matter, and they actually cost a lot if you are not able to find in a production environment a problem which comes up and they are not being identified very quickly. So personalized weightage and scoring wise, like my thought is that there is a lot out of even in these categories. Like if we dig deeper, the reusability, your real-time components capture and everything, all those things actually comes into the picture. Your scheduling needs, as I said, like most of the companies have schedules which are interdependent on different applications. Your data might be coming in from an external source or external partner who might be sending it through EDI or through FTP, and you have to wait for them to send the data, then your ETL job needs to run. So all those dependencies actually play into the picture. So if your scheduler is only working inside that tool and it does not cater anything outside, or it does not have any trigger mechanism from outside of that tool scheduling mechanism, then you might have a trouble. Like we have seen in many bigger organizations that these schedules of ETL jobs, they're not standalone or not in a cloud kind of thing where no one else is actually affecting them. Most of the time, the source data, the targets, and all those things are so much connected with each other that you have to go into a queue where there might be some jobs which might be running outside of your ETL tool, and you might have to be dependent on those tools, those jobs to get completed. And your scheduling comes a very, very vital piece into that. So these are the kind of things which we think like personalized weightage and scoring should happen. There's a long list of these kind of features which in our understanding, like one should understand and adopt, but these all things actually comes and goes where we actually have to go and do a personalized kind of a view. You might not have many of those challenges, but that's the key to this, that whenever your partner is actually helping you score on any tool's capability in that particular perspective, that needs to be actually excuse me for that. So that needs to be actually very much in line with what your needs are, instead of what generally that tool actually provides. You might have a challenge with the performance, like many of like our customers in the legacy world, they do meet their SLAs and everything, and they might have challenge with the performance at that time, or they data, how much amount of data you are moving, and then weighing the performance of that particular tool against that. What kind of different data sources you support, and these tools, how they play along with those particular tools. I will go into a little bit more detail into individual tools capability and everything, just to show you guys like how those tools capabilities compare to each other, as well as like how it should be weighed against what your challenges are and what kind of different challenges our other partners have faced before. So going further, we will be evaluating like these are just some samples. It's not reflective of all the industry information, but I will just to show you guys the examples on and these two tools and some more in perspective, like Informatica, SSIS, most of the people in the market on the data integration sides understand that, and they know that Informatica is a kind of a leading tool. We already saw that in the Gartner study. SQL Server is also not that far behind, and it's also been adopted along. And as I said, in the community strength side of things, like Informatica is adopted by 5,000 plus organizations in US, the multi-billion dollars, the Fortune 500 companies. Informatica is being utilized in many of those. So it have a very strong presence in the community, and it have a very strong presence in the software base. You can get the resources very easily in the market. And the same happens with the SQL Server, that they have been adopted even 10,000 plus companies. The one reason for that is obviously Microsoft platform and Microsoft solutions are being used at many more organizations than the normal operations and normal applications. So most of the time SQL Server integration services actually comes along with that. So you know that means like these tools have a very strong community strength. Same might not be true for some of the newcomers into the market or the open source tools and that kind of stuff. So when you are evaluating, this is a kind of a key factor where you can see like how much, what is the market base for these tools. And if those tools are not mostly adopted, but you see like in the demo, this seems very flashy. You see like everything is good with them, seems good with them. You might want to give a deeper look to take more understanding on their tool capabilities and try to evaluate them against the leading tools in the market, so that why people are not choosing that. Once you start asking those questions and your partner helps you understand what might be the reasoning against some of those factors, it will be easier for you to actually make a decision in favor of that particular tool or against it. Because your partner will be able to provide you all the information which you need, but in the end, the decision is yours. You need to make that call based on all the information and evaluation which your partners provide as a result of you. One more benefit for Informatica is like that this provide common platform for modern information infrastructures like Hadoop or MongoDB. If you are connecting with any of those, or even to social media, your ETL job creation logic does not change. Like whether you are connecting with Teradata or Netezza, you create a mapping same way as you are creating or for SQL Server or for Oracle. So it doesn't change with the tool. But in many other cases, like if you are in a SQL Server world, if you are trying to connect with the Hadoop engine, you might not be able to create the same kind of mapping which you are able to do in SQL Server to SQL Server or SQL Server to Oracle kind of a data transformation. So that's a very good plus for Informatica. If you are more towards that diversified kind of an environment, that means like you then might be a candidate for tools which actually support the same kind of environment for any of those sources or targets. Otherwise, like then there will be extra cost in developing specialized jobs for all those specialized tools. But there are again like some negative the learning side of things. The learning curve is a little bit longer rather than other tools. The reason being again like it's a good tool, but it's also have so much functionalities and so much operations which a good developer needs to understand and needs to know how actually Informatica implements it on the back end. So the learning curve is there, which weighs on sometimes the project which are against a timeline. The same piece actually happens when the clarity on the product offering. Informatica is not an ETL tool anymore. Informatica have offerings in so many different things, and they have so many different modules available in the market. That's one customer who comes in and just want to buy an ETL tool, he will get amazed with like how much options he have in and on Informatica platform, and he will need some advice and help from a partner who have utilized all of those and is accustomed to utilizing them and can advise them what one to use, which one to choose and not to choose. The same is the case like when we come into the SQL Server side of things. It remains an embedded functionality of SQL Server and it obviously comes with it as a native application. So the piece comes in like whenever you are connecting with a very diversified environment, it becomes a challenge. But the same thing is like if you are a Microsoft shop, it's a very, very big plus. Informatica's SSIS is a huge add-on for any kind of data integration if you're a Microsoft shop. But that thing change if you have diversified environment and you have different kind of sources and targets, and when SSIS starts showing lags into some of the capabilities which it shows into SQL Server to SQL Server data integration or Microsoft other application data integrations. And we and most of the times we have to write separate code to actually get data out of S400 instead of trying to look everything through SSIS. So that's just some examples on the tools. Like you might all be familiar with ODI. It's a very good tool. It's a very user-friendly tool, and there's a very big market which is also using it. But the challenge with that is like it's an ELT tool. It's do all the transformations either at a source or a target. You cannot do it outside of anything. So there's some infrastructure-related challenges which comes along with that. But Informatica or these other tools which are in the mix, they don't depend on that only ELT functionality. They can do both at the same time. So there are some pluses and negatives. So if you are an Oracle shop, ODI might be a very good solution for you. But if you are not, there challenges comes in when you are actually connecting through so much diversified sources on an ELT mechanism. So, and this was just an example on what these different tools have as a plus and minus. So coming on, just to give a little bit more deeper dive on different features available on these tools, I just want to elaborate on like this is a scorecard. Obviously, like it's not representing all the tools which you guys saw on the Gartner study. We just took a sample just to give you guys an idea like how you might be starting on evaluating those different features, like whether these tools provide multiple platform support. Like if you are a Linux shop and you buy a tool which is only supported by Windows, that will be a challenge for you, and their network administrators might not be happy with that. And obviously, like Linux and Windows have their pros and cons. The same thing happens if you're real-time and CDC need. So it might be an analytical need where you want the analytics on a real-time basis or near real-time basis, or you might want to use that ETL tool also for application integration. So anything which changes in one application, you don't want to go to an EAI tool like BizTalk or message queuing application. Instead, you want that that ETL tool should also support that. And if many of these tools actually do support that, but how that is supported is a key piece. So in case of like just to tell you like some of these tools in the market, they do have the CDC capability. SQL Server have very good like SSIS have very good real-time CDC capability for SQL Server databases. But when you go to the other tools like DB2, Teradata, Netezza, or any of those kind of environments, or Oracle, and the SQL Server CDC does not perform as well as it should be, and that's why most of the DBAs are more reluctant towards applying SQL Server SSIS CDC on those other databases. But the same happens like if you have Informatica in place or data state, they do provide so good capability in CDC that they are designed to actually provide CDC capabilities for each different kind of database according to their DBMS. And they don't, the most best thing about them is like they don't impact your OLTP systems or their performance. So it's more easier to convince the DBAs to implement CDC on their production box if you have a right tool for that purpose. Same happens with the, like most of the companies are now also moving towards cloud, and or they want software as a service instead of spending time on all these actual tools. buying and licensing it, and they want to use it as a software as a service. So does this component, like if you want to, if you know, like you have challenges in all of those areas where you can set up rules and then utilize it in different ETL jobs, do you have reusable components in these tools, and if how much good they are? Most of the tools in the market in today's world, they are one the debugger is not that much good. There's a challenge which the IT team or the support team will have to face. And do they have separate modules? Many of these tools comes packaged with everything included in them. Like if you are buying SSIS, all the capabilities which SSIS provide, it have everything in it. You go with IBM DataStage or Pentaho or Talent, all those tools actually come packaged. But just in the case like Informatica, that otherwise you don't pay for that, and you take only the ETL component of it. So you will not be spending extra money on something which you don't need. And you have choice for that in some of those tools, which does not package in one kind of solution. And the same happened with the data quality components. Like if you want to utilize data quality components, some of these tools comes with a separate component which you have to license and buy outside of your ETL tool, and some comes with the data quality components embedded into the core ETL functionality. So that is something also which we might want to evaluate and consider while selecting a tool. The native connectivity with the different databases, it's a very, very key kind of information. The reason being, like many of these leading tools actually provide you native connectivity instead of just ODBC or OLEDB connectivity with the different databases. What helps with that is if a DBMS is good on doing something, we want to utilize that. We don't want to just eliminate all the functionalities which DBMS can do better and bring it in another tool. So these tools actually then utilize, like if they are giving you a native connection with that particular DBMS, they actually helps you utilize all those capabilities of DBMS and don't put that load onto the ETL tool, which obviously will be lacking if that DBMS is known for some particular quality. One example is Teradata. Obviously, they do pass data onto all different nodes and everything. And then their loading strategy, their extraction strategy, those all things are embedded into Teradata load utilities very, very effectively. So there are tools which provide you the native connectivity with all that. And once you have that connectivity, your ETL tool will not be using its own loading or extraction mechanism. Rather, it will be going to Teradata load utilities to load the data, which will be even faster than any tool or any kind of hardware which you can support. So that's the kind of thing which your partner will be able to help you out on selecting those tools, that which of these tools have those capabilities and which one not. And the SQL pushdown option is one of the key pieces which usually developers love, and they found only on the DBMS side, because DBMS is again like good on that, instead of doing that in the ETL side. But the key feature to that is that you don't change your ETL mechanism, and you actually just utilize the same kind of functionality techy for a webinar in that sense, but it just gives you that idea where all these questions should be asked before selecting a tool, instead of after you selected and you are finding out what are the capabilities of that tool and what happens with that particular tool. So Going further,
again, thank you everyone for being a part of our ETL tool selection webinar. We thank you for your time and attention. Hope you've gained some knowledge and insight to take away from this panel. And at this time, we'd like to ask if you could provide us with some feedback, and in which case, please go ahead and select your response and hit submit. So this way we have the survey and we get a perspective on where the audience is in terms of what they perceived of our webinar today around ETL tool selection. Again, thank you very much for being a part of us today. We're going to open up the question and answer session as of this time, so if anyone have any questions at this time, of course, feel free to submit them through, again, our question feature, and then we'll take some questions now, and we'll go from there. One of the questions we've received from the audience just now is, the question reads, when selecting an ETL tool for solutioning, would you recommend the same tool for testing, rules, data validation, etc.? So again, if I were to rephrase the question, basically what the audience want to know is, while deciding on the particular ETL tool, would you recommend the same tool for all three stages, for testing, the ruling, and the data validation aspect of it?
So it depends. What happens, like, what I have seen is both of those things being utilized at some point of time. Like at one point, the same tools and same category or the family of the tools being utilized for all three phases. And at some point, like also not selecting all of those tools together. The reason being is, like, again, it's something which the project sponsors need to decide that how they want to actually implement their project. There have been like those tools, like in terms of Informatica or these other leading tools, they do provide DVO option, like where you are doing data validation through using those tools. But they're in the market for any of the data integration kind of projects or data validation projects. There are specialized tools for their automated testing, which give you more leverage and more flexibility for the QA team to actually write their automated script to test different scenarios more seamlessly than the actual tool which it provides. Like in the ETL tools, you can rerun the jobs, you can run different scenarios, and you can input different kind of data. But sometimes those automated testing tools which are in the market, they factor better rather than the actual tool which is provided by the same vendor. Okay. So my recommendation is, again, like it's not a silver bullet just to say a yes or no answer. More is that actually we need to decide and evaluate on based on needs which we are going to. My recommendation will be like, more inclination will be like, if you are doing a whole ETL transformation, we are rewriting the EDW, rewriting your enterprise data layer or data lake, creating a new data lake. You might want to go with a specialized tools for data validation and testing. If you are doing some small kind of initiatives and you are going to transform your ETL jobs in not in one go but in different iterations, the normal ETL tools might also give you the facility to actually validate data, and you might not need to spend time or money on the separate tools.
Thank you. Hopefully that have answered the question for the audience that have asked it. Going forward to the next question, one of the questions reads, from the features comparison table, it seems that the actual data stage looks promising. Then why is Informatica more widely used? Would you be able to answer that, Asad?
So obviously, like on the comparison features which I was providing, these are not the whole picture. I was just giving a sample look on those. And IBM data stage is not far behind. You might already see, like, so, and if you go and see the different studies, different years of studies on even Gartner and Foster, you might find out that Informatica and IBM data stage are changing spaces as a leader of the pack in all those years. Last year, Informatica was not the best tool rather than actually IBM data stage was there. So there's a very, very minute difference into capabilities of those tools, and which keep changing with every year when they push their new functionalities and new things into the market.
From your perspective, though, along the same lines, regards to this question, would you find Informatica to be widely used ubiquitously in the market, or is it close, as you've mentioned, to data
So
stage?
one thing which I have seen with IBM data stage is like the IBM shops, they use data stage more widely and they don't incline to go towards Informatica. And that is one more reason why IBM data stage is also have a very big, larger data like base in the market. But whenever the people are not using IBM as their other solutions, most of the time, like they do tend to go towards Informatica or other tools in the market. So it's more like IBM, SSIS, Oracle ODI. What I have seen historically that if the IT organization is more inclined towards using all Oracle applications, the ODI is also in the mix. If you are using IBM ERP and IBM's other solution databases and everything into the mix, data stage is more ideal choice for them, and it actually supports them better. Same is the case with SSIS, as I said, like it is for Microsoft Shop, SSIS is the best choice. But whenever you have a diversified environment, Informatica comes on the top.
Great. Thank you for answering that question. The tools that were mentioned earlier, do any of them support ETL? That's one of the questions from the audience. Again, the tools which were mentioned earlier, any of them support ELT?
Actually, all of those tools support that, and that's the key. Like when I was mentioning a kind of a drawback on ODI side, ODI only supports ELT. It does not support ETL that well. It's known for. But Informatica or Pentaho or IBM Data Stage or SSIS, they do support ELT functionality also. So a data architect or a BI architect, when they are designing a solution, they do want that flexibility that they can pick and choose what operations to actually perform on either source or a target, and what operations to perform into the tool engine or that ETL tool server. And that flexibility actually gives a birth to a better design for data management. And my recommendation usually is towards using those tools which have both capabilities instead of just one.
Great. So before we close up for today, Asad, there's one more question that I've come up from the audience. If we can answer this. The question reads, we do most of our work through the DB store procedures, which helps us meet our performance requirement. How will a tool help us achieve the same performance? So I think what I'm reading from this is they're more geared towards performance of their system, and they want to know whether an ETL tool that they would select would provide them and offer them the same type of performance that they would get from writing their own DB store procedures.
So using DB store procedures is not a bad option in doing the massive transformation processes and massive data crunching like achieving those needs. But if you are only dependent on them, we have seen challenges coming up and in many of our organizations and our partners. I have personally worked with one of our partners where over the years, like they built a very robust kind of ETL solution, which was all based on DTS packages and SSIS packages. But now the lines of code was so much that no one was able to understand that if one change is happening at one point, what will be the impact of that at all the other places. They were like, on one particular case, they had like 500,000 lines of code just written over the last 10, 20 years for ETL purpose. So now, like, they are very good in performance, but any new change is a new project in itself. And the business is very, very reluctant on asking IT for help, because every time they come with a new solution, like, oh, we need this data from here, or we need this rule change, that's a big project for IT because of all that. But as I said earlier in the features and everything, utilizing DBMS capabilities in some aspects is very beneficial. So data architects can decide that where to use a stored procedure and where not to use a stored procedure. But the performance is obviously going to be one piece, but most of these tools are very good on performance, and the reason being like their native connections. Their native connections actually help you utilize all the DBMS functionalities which those stored procedures are providing.
Great, thank you, Asif, for that very informative webinar. It was very illuminating, and hopefully the audience have gained some benefit out of that as well. Hopefully you've gained some knowledge and insight to take away from this panel. So again, at this time we'd like to conclude our webinar, and thank you for attending this webinar, of course, and for any and all of your ETL related issues, questions, comments. Please feel free to contact us, and of course you can contact us directly through our website at webinar@visionetsystems.com, and or our address on the website as well. So great, thank you everyone.